I suspect a good part of this audience wasn't even born when tonight's honoree and I first met back in 1955, 58 years ago. I'd wandered into the CBC, an out-of-work reporter just back from London, having left the tedium of working rewrite on the Reuters Central Desk, hoping to make food money as a per diem writer for the evening television news broadcast. There I encountered a skeletal fellow who seemed to be in charge, if only because he towered over a motley group of burnt-out cases and wannabes like myself. I knew nothing about television. I'd barely seen any television. And there I was, working for this seasoned, demanding editor who clearly bore the confidence of years of experience. Turns out he'd been there for a full 3 weeks. Such were those early days of television news, when you made up the rules and conventions as you went along. And no one was more skillful and inventive than that extended bag of bones that we honor tonight. He became the first editor of News magazine, Sundays at 7, long before 60 Minutes was a gleam in anyone's eye. He brought me along as his deputy, and within months he chose to become a correspondent, leaving me in control of the broadcast. We both had the most limited understanding of what the hell we were doing, but we managed to fake it brilliantly. Very soon after, we switched again. I became the correspondent, and he, to no one's surprise, left the safe confines of corporate journalism for the minefield of independent production, armed only with that essential toolkit of journalism of any kind, the English language. Brilliantly marrying pictures to words became his stock in trade, which will be evident as we take a look, get a taste of some of the work he's done.
Remember the 50s? How fear took over? Everywhere panic. Cuba. I'm there as Fidel Castro takes power.
I am not a soldier, a professional soldier. I am a soldier of freedom only.
Everywhere upheaval. In the Himalayas with the Dalai Lama, just forced out of Tibet. India with Prime Minister Nehru on the very day China invades. Nehru on the nature of superpowers.
Perhaps it is a consciousness of strength making them throw their weight about.
Then to Vietnam for the first time, to meet America's man in Saigon, President Ngo Dinh Diem.
There are 6,500 of them like this, each a cluster of 100 houses or so behind barbed wire.
At this point, America has been in Vietnam for as long as the French were. Nothing learned.
For me, there were no more answers to be had in the South. If there were answers to this war, they had to be in the North and in the past.
If some extraterrestrial being were to land here, what planet would he imagine he was on? Not even the moon is cratered like this. No shower of meteorites, no force of nature ever equaled the American bombing of this spot. It conveys some idea of what 4-year saturation bombing was like.
Amid the triumphant roar of today's Hanoi, a place of tears. An infamous place to the Vietnamese, but they too kept prisoners here, Americans, and their treatment became the paramount issue for the American public late in the war.
We've had to really go to the very core of our feelings on a number of things. Loyalty, what is it? Where does it lie?
We discuss the war very much because the war is very close to us here.
And we've talked about it at that length, and how we feel.
The war must be ended, and it must be stopped now.
It was certainly a very carefully controlled, staged, and edited, as well as censored production that appeared last night.
I'm asking you now, what is loyalty?
Well, it has to be to a very high principle. It has to be. It has to be to a principle. Because
beyond country?
It has to be beyond institutions, yes.
For the reporter, too, the same questions come to apply in such times as the Vietnam War. What is morality? What is duty? Where does it lie? To the audience, only the audience, I believe, not to the networks, certainly not to the state. And yet when the state, in this case the United States, is arraigned against you and your own network, well, that's a very lonely place to be.